Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're unraveling a pretty fascinating constitutional mystery, right at the heart of the world's largest democracy. You know, when you look at the Indian Republic, it's almost always the Prime Minister making the headlines, right? They're the ones announcing major policies and basically leading the government. But sitting above the Prime Minister, at least constitutionally speaking, is the President of India. So it really makes you wonder, is the president the ultimate authority here, or just a ceremonial figure who signs papers all day? Okay, let's dive into this and figure out exactly where the true power lies.
Here's our roadmap for this explainer. We'll be looking at 1. Head of state versus government, 2. How to actually become president, 3. Their normal, day-to-day powers, 4. The much more intense emergency powers, and 5. Their ultimate role as protector of the Constitution.
And this brings us to the core question that constitutional scholars and political junkies just absolutely love to debate. Is the President of India basically a rubber stamp? Are they just this mere figurehead who nods along to whatever the Prime Minister wants? Well, to answer that, we really have to understand the specific system of government India chose when they drafted their constitution.
India went with what's called the Westminster model of government. And the hallmark of this system is that it splits the executive branch right down the middle. It's like a division of labor. You have the dignified executive, that's the head of state, who holds all the formal constitutional power. And then you have the efficient executive, the head of government, who is actually running the day-to-day operations. This split is absolutely crucial to unlocking our mystery. So let's apply that whole Westminster concept directly to the Indian system.
Section 1. Head of state, not government.
Now, what's really interesting here is how this plays out in reality. In India, the president is that dignified executive. They are the head of the state. Literally, all the powers of the Constitution are formally vested in them. However, and this is a massive however, the Constitution mandates that the president exercises these powers strictly on the advice of the Union Council of Ministers, which of course is headed by the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister is the efficient executive, the real working head. So, on paper, the president has all the power, but in practice, they're bound by the advice of the Prime Minister's cabinet. Knowing that, you might be wondering, who actually gets chosen for this kind of unique role?
Section 2. How to become or remove a president. 35. That is the magic number. It's the minimum age required to even be considered for President of India. You also have to be an Indian citizen and be fully qualified to be elected to the Lok Sabha, which is the lower house of parliament. But here's the catch. You aren't elected directly by the public. Nope. The president is actually chosen by a highly specific electoral college made up exclusively of elected members of parliament and elected members of the state legislative assemblies. Nominated members, they don't get a vote at all. This whole setup ensures the president represents the mandate of both the national and the state-level elected representatives.
But what if a president goes totally rogue? Well, the Constitution actually includes this pretty radical process called impeachment under Article 61. It kicks off with a formal charge of violation of the Constitution. And to even get that started, you need a quarter of the members of either House of Parliament to sign a resolution giving 14 days' notice. Then, it requires a massive two-thirds majority vote in that same House. After that, the other House investigates the charge, and if they also pass it with a two-thirds majority, the president is out. Now, the phrase violation of the Constitution is famously vague, but the threshold is just so incredibly high that, fun fact, no president in Indian history has ever been removed by impeachment. So assuming the president is in good standing, what are they actually doing all day?
Section 3. The normal powers. Honestly, at first glance, it feels like they run the whole world. I mean, just think about the sheer breadth of this stuff. The entire administration of the union government runs in the president's name. They're the ones appointing the prime minister, the Supreme Court judges, and the state governors. They summon parliament. Absolutely no money bill can be introduced without their prior permission. They grant pardons. They are the supreme commander of all the armed forces. They even send ambassadors abroad. It is a massive portfolio. But remember our Westminster rule? They do almost all of this on the advice of the Prime Minister's cabinet.
There is one normal power that really stands out, though: the ordinances power. When Parliament is not in session, the president can promulgate ordinances. And these aren't just polite suggestions. They have the exact same force and effect as a law passed by Parliament. This kind of legislative power is incredibly rare for a president in a democratic country. It's really meant as a stopgap measure, and Parliament does have to approve it within 6 weeks of reassembling, but man, it's a super potent tool in the president's arsenal. Now, if those are the normal powers, what happens when things go completely wrong? We are shifting gears pretty drastically here.
Section 4.
the emergency powers.
Right. So this is where the president's authority goes from just structural to incredibly sweeping. Let's look at how this builds up historically, starting with national emergencies under Article 352. The Constitution says the president can declare a national emergency if India's security is threatened by war, external aggression, or armed rebellion. And when this happens, India essentially transforms into a unitary state. The union government can take over state powers, and fundamental rights can actually be restricted. This massive power has only been used 3 times. In 1962 due to Chinese aggression, in 1971 during the war with Pakistan, and most controversially in 1975 on the grounds of internal disturbances, which was a period so intense it eventually caused the ruling Congress Party to lose the following election.
And then there's Article 356. You'll usually hear this called President's Rule, or a state emergency. If the president gets a report that a state government just cannot function according to the Constitution, they can basically step in and take over that state's government. The state legislature can be dissolved entirely, and the president assumes the state's executive functions. Now, this is arguably the single most debated provision in the entire Constitution. Why? Because historically it's been used over 111 times. A lot of critics argue it frequently became this political safety valve used by ruling parties at the center to destabilize state governments run by their political opposition.
Because of this history, emergency powers are just intensely debated. Critics are quick to argue they're deeply anti-federal, that they destroy the autonomy of the states, they suspend the fundamental rights of the people, and, as we've just seen, they are highly prone to gross political misuse. But, on the flip side, the justifications are really rooted in raw survival. Proponents argue there are historical necessity. India is a vast, incredibly diverse nation that has faced some severe instability over the years. From this perspective, giving the center emergency powers is absolutely essential to preserve national security and maintain the very unity of the country. And this tension, it brings us perfectly to the climax of our investigation. When the chips are down, is the president a rubber stamp, or are they something else entirely?
Final section. Protector of the Constitution.
The answer to our mystery actually lies hidden in plain sight, right in the oath of office under Article 60. Before they even step into the role, the president swears to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and the law. Notice what's missing there? They don't swear blind loyalty to the prime minister. They don't swear loyalty to the ruling government. Their ultimate, absolute highest loyalty is to the document itself. The Constitution is their boss. So, if the advice given by the Council of Ministers somehow goes against the Constitution itself, the president actually has a duty to act independently to protect that constitutional framework.
And this brilliantly illustrates how the office works in reality. History shows us plenty of presidents who pushed back. The very first president, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, had serious discussions and major constitutional rifts with Prime Minister Nehru regarding the limits of his powers. In the 1980s, President Jani Zel Singh famously withheld his assent to the highly controversial Indian Postal Amendment Bill, which effectively stopped it right in its tracks. And in 1999, President K.R. Narayanan actively asked the government to reconsider its advice to impose president's rule in Bihar. They weren't dictators for sure, but they definitely weren't just spectators either.
So, the crucial point is this. The Indian president is normally bound by the advice of the elected government. It's a parliamentary democracy, after all. But the Constitution cleverly left the president with this latent, immense authority. They are the system's ultimate failsafe. So, I'm going to leave you with this to ponder. If the political machinery ever truly breaks down, if the government itself tries to violate the foundational laws of the land, who truly stands between order and chaos? It's not a rubber stamp. It's the President of India. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning how your world works.